Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Super Bowl edition of the Kelly Green Hour as your Philadelphia Eagles dominate the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 in a game that was not that close to earn their second Vince Lombardi trophy in the last 8 seasons, second in the franchise history. I'm your host, LJ Rowan. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, we've been doing this show for 8 years. And while after the Super Bowl 52, we did not do a show after that. Like we still were doing shows to an extent. But this is the first one we get to do after an Eagles Super Bowl victory. And man, I, for one, was shocked with the way the game played out. I did not expect the Eagles to be up 34-0. Thought it was going to be a close game throughout. It was not. And the Eagles thoroughly showed that why they were the more superior team. And they out-physicaled the Kansas City Chiefs. And Andy Reid just looked bewildered, befuddled. And Nick Sirianni is about to get paid, along with a bunch of other people and players on this Eagles team. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing amazing. I mean, like I was saying before, there's a lot of people who didn't sleep well. I have a 3-month-old daughter, so I fell asleep at 12:30, 1 o'clock my time. So about an hour and a half after the Super Bowl ended. But that's only because I had to get up for my daughter soon after. But I mean, otherwise, if not for that, I probably wouldn't have slept much either. It was amazing. It is so good to see Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. I could not think of two more deserving people after the treatment that they've gone through the back half of last year, through to the early portion of this year, through the media criticism, through it all. Seeing Jalen Hurts, he let out a few big smiles, but the grin, he just wanted to be smiling ear to ear for the entire post game and everything. It's so great to see, man. It was so amazing to see, and it's so great to see it twice in my lifetime. There's some people I know who are fans of teams who haven't even seen the playoffs in their lifetime. So to get 2 Vince Lombardis in our lifetime and to witness against 2 that dynasties, let's just face it, the 3-peat wasn't going to make or break this dynasty. I know that there's a lot of conversation about it. I don't think it broke this dynasty. What defines a dynasty? I mean, the Patriots dynasty was on a different level from the Chiefs because of, the Super Bowls and how consistent the Super Bowls were. But I mean, still to know that we beat 2 of the best teams that are going to go down in NFL history, probably in our lifetime. And then the way that this one went down just felt so good. And like you said, man, it's crazy. Milton Williams, you knew was going to get paid. Josh Sweat, you knew was going to get paid. Josh Sweat got a new agent right before this game, and that new agent probably is just laughing and thank you,
Drew
Josh.
Rosenhaus, and Drew Rosenhaus goes for the big.
Yeah,
before we jump into that, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHurl54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. And if you're tuning in live, let us know your thoughts on the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Can't say it enough. The team that has won 16 of their last 17 games since the bye. And if it wasn't for a Devontae Smith drop, they would be on a 17-game winning streak right now. And that's just ridiculous to think about. But the Eagles are the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions, which is, man, I was telling some people earlier, I went through the first 30 years of my life without seeing the Eagles win a championship, and they have won 2 in the last 8 seasons. You mentioned it, Nick Sirianni deserves a bunch of credit. Jalen Hurts deserves a bunch of credit. Howie Roseman deserves a bunch of credit. Vic Fangio winning, I think it's his first Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Vic Fangio deserves a lot of credit. Kellen Moore. These last 2 weeks, the Eagles put up 95 points. Now, the defense did score with the Cooper DeJean interception return for a touchdown. The Rooks getting their first interceptions in the playoff time when it matters the most. It's awesome. They put up 95 points in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl. the Eagles scored the most points in NFL history in the playoffs. They rushed for the most yards in NFL history in the playoffs, over 800 yards in 4 games. Saquon Barkley set the record for rushing yards, beating Terrell Davis's over 2,500 yards rushing in the regular season and the playoffs. Eagles turned the ball over once in the postseason, and that was when in the Super Bowl, a Jalen Hurts interception. Nick Bolton came on a blitz. I put the blame on Cam Jurgens, but it doesn't matter at this point. The Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Agreed.
But he wasn't able to step into it. He had I think it was AJ Brown open. Could have potentially been a touchdown or at least an incomplete pass, but it pretty much worked out as a punt because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Chiefs went 3 and out, and the Eagles got the ball and scored a touchdown, I think, the next drive anyway. But yeah, it's and you were mentioning all the people that are going to get paid. Nick Sirianni is getting a raise. He's going into the last year of his contract. They're not going to let him be a lame duck coach. He's one of the lowest paid coaches right now. Ben Johnson got paid a lot. All these coaches that just got hired got paid a lot. His agent should be like, dude, we've been to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. We just won a Super Bowl. I'm 48-20 in the regular season. Show me that money. So he's about to
Adam Schefter said he probably will outdo Ben Johnson's $13 million, which I mean,
again,
but there's no salary cap.
Yeah, exactly.
So
there's no salary cap for coaches, and the Eagles fired Doug Peterson 2 years after. I think it was 2 years after they won the Super Bowl. So just eat it if you have to. And then some of the players. Milton Williams made a bunch of money. Josh Sweat, 2.5 sacks, could have potentially been if Jalen didn't throw the touchdown pass to Devontae Smith. Josh Sweat's probably your MVP. He had a great game. Zach Bond obviously going to make a lot of money. It's going to be very intriguing, and we're not going to really kind of zero in on this today, but like the decisions that Howie's going to have to make in terms of who to bring back, what moves to make, it's going to be big. Like we talked about Zach Bond. They probably should have signed him in the regular season, but his number has gone up and up and up every week, especially throughout the playoffs and being in the defensive player of the year, nominations. Milton Williams. I still remember the video when the Eagles drafted Williams. Was that 4 years ago? And Howie was all excited, giving fist pumps, and I think he went up to
one of the
Ed Donahue, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he wasn't happy. He wanted somebody else. Well, Milton Williams is freaking amazing. He is really good. I would love to bring him back.
And that other person that they wanted is already on their second team. It was Jeremy Chin, I think, that was rumored to be the one.
Well, no, I think it was a different defensive tackle that Ed Donahue wanted. I don't remember who it was.
Chin was the Hurts pick.
Yeah,
with the Hurts pick, somebody wanted Chin, which now looks,
Yeah. But when Milton Williams got picked, Donahue was thinking of, I can't remember who it was, but he wanted somebody else. Josh Sweat, who I don't think is going to return. Remember, he had to take a restructured contract coming into this year. He just, like you mentioned, hired a new agent. Drew Rosenhaus he's going to get him paid. He had 2.5 sacks, like I mentioned, could have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. So he's going to make a lot of money. I don't think he'll be back. And that could also, I mean, obviously the Eagles are going to have to replace some of these players, and this is where there's all this talk of the last 3 or 4 drafts, the first 3 rounds, how Howie has absolutely killed it. Well, he's going to have to kill it once again. You have the 32nd pick in the first round. You're going to have a late draft picks. The potential of trading for, say, a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby is probably slim with the way with just their contracts and the amount of money that you're going to have to put out with extensions for them and the extensions that you're going to. I mean, I think they're going to prioritize Zach Bond. I could be wrong, but you never know. They don't really prioritize the linebacker position, but when the Kobe Dean probably not going to be ready for the season next year, you're going to have stability there. Or they could think, hey, we found Zach Bond, let's go find another Zach Bond. It's possible. So we'll see. But all these players, Howie hit. Remember in 2017, Howie hit on Alshon Jeffrey, Corey Clement as an undrafted free agent. Jay Ajayi, the trade, LeGarrette Blount, the signing. Like he hit on all the moves that he made in 2017. This year, he hit on 99% of them because Bryce Huff, who was inactive, by the way, he did not hit. So, like, how he's not perfect, but man, when he hits, his batting average is high. So he deserves a ton of credit for putting this team together, and he's on the trajectory to be a Hall of Fame GM. He's got 2 Super Bowl titles, and this team is the second youngest team in football right now, and they're talented, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Vic Fangio, probably not. I don't think he's going to want to become a head coach. So that defense could just get better and better because I'm almost positive he didn't put everything in there this year with it being a young defense. He can add to that this offseason, and we can see a bunch of different things that this defense can do. So it wouldn't shock me if the defense continues to get better because the 2 quote-unquote old guys on defense, Slay and Graham's probably going to retire. You never know. And Slay wants to play 1 more year. It'll be interesting if he comes back with the Eagles. I guess it would depend on it, maybe if he takes a hometown discount because, I mean, you win a Super Bowl here. And him and his wife, like, fit this town perfect. He was made to play in Philadelphia, I'm just going to say. And so, like, this defense is going to be young. It's going to be now they're going to be experienced with the 2 rookies in the secondary. Jalen Carter is a man-child. The hit that he put on Mahomes in the 4th quarter, I think it was, man, I'm surprised they didn't throw a flag on him. It was on the strip sack that Milton Williams, he destroyed him. The offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs stood 0 chance against the front 4. The Eagles did not blitz once and had over 50% pressure rate. I've never seen that before in my life.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a ton of points. I'm trying to remember everything. Definitely, like, the fact that they never blitzed was crazy. When that stat came out, I could not believe that there was not a blitz. But then when I thought back to the game, all I ever saw was the front 4 going. There was never a 5th person. They just went with the front 4. And that just speaks to clearly Vic Fangio. We kind of spoke about it on our preview show that the biggest weakness has been and was going to be that offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs. They were banged up. They had different bodies in place. They moved what was one of their better guards out to tackle, which when you make that type of move, you're weakening both positions because obviously Tooney is an amazing guard, not an amazing tackle, not a good tackle. So then you got to chuck in another guard in his place who wasn't very good either. And I think it was Trey Smith who was in his place. And they just got eaten alive. Like, there was 30 total pressures.
Actually was in his place. Sorry.
Yeah, 30 total pressures on 56 snaps, but obviously those 56 snaps were not all. Well, I mean, a large majority was passing because the Chiefs did not make any attempt to get a run game going, even when they tried at the beginning. Like, I felt that was something where the Chiefs went wrong. They should have tried to establish some sort of run game. I know it got out of hand very quickly, but even at the beginning, they had 3 rush attempts in the first quarter. Like, they barely even tried to rush the football. It was really like, and that just gave, I think, and that was one of the things that gave Fangio the confidence to say, I'm just sending forward because they're not going to run the football. And if they show me they're going to run the football, I'll respect that if I need to. But he didn't have to respect any type of run game, which makes it really difficult for an offensive line because, as we know, the best offensive line or even the best offensive line's players' deficiencies can be covered by being able to run the ball. And we've seen that even with the Eagles sometimes. Sometimes when we've had our games where we aren't the best pass protectors. But we can always guarantee that if we have to run the ball and we need to dominate on the ground, we can do that with this offensive line. And it was really impressive. Like, Saquon on the flip side of it, Saquon Barkley didn't have a big game, but he had a good game. And you could tell the Chiefs on the flip side wanted to stop and seemed fixated on stopping the run game which left a lot of man-to-man, one-on-one opportunities like the Devontae Smith catch, like the A.J. Brown catch, like the Jahan Dotson catch that was nearly a touchdown.
Man, imagine, I wonder what the odds were on him scoring the first touchdown. Somebody could have made a lot of cash.
It would have been so much. But I imagine seeing it called back if you put that bet. That would have just been heartbreaking. But like Jahan Dotson had his best game as an Eagle in the Super Bowl. It felt like a lot of players had arguably their best games of the season in the Super Bowl. And you could tell this team, like you can tell when when everyone's talking about, we just came in every matchup and we were just a more physical team. We wanted to be in people's faces. We wanted to be the more physical team. We wanted to beat these teams down. And we did pretty much every round.
One thing I noticed is the way the Eagles beat them was the way the Bucs beat the Chiefs back in the 2021 in that Super Bowl. The offensive line for the Chiefs back then was bad. It wasn't good this yesterday. And the Bucs defense, the Bucs front four just totally dominated and got after Patrick Mahomes, and that's what the Eagles did. And they hit him. And you could tell the Eagles took this as a business-like approach. Excuse me. They didn't come for games. This was totally different than 2 years ago. When it was the first time this group went to the Super Bowl, and obviously it was Andy against the Eagles, and I had mentioned, like, I didn't want that type of feel for this. I wanted a business-like approach. I wanted revenge, and that's how they took it. The beginning of the game when Saquon was being interviewed before the game, he looked laser focused, and that's exactly what you could tell. Like there was no joy. Like usually Brandon Graham is yapping and he's all. He even looked serious. Like they came in with a purpose and with a mission. And I don't know if they executed that to perfection. And it was crazy. It was just everything that they wanted to do early on. Like I said, when it was it got up to 34-0. I was like, this can't be real life. Early on, though, like it felt like it should have been a lot worse than it was for the Eagles. It should have been up a lot more. And that's why I was like, man, this is still Patrick Mahomes. But that was crazy when you saw the first play of the game for the Chiefs was an 11-yard pass play, a first down. They didn't get a first down the rest of the half. They didn't get across midfield to the third quarter, I think. And the Eagles at halftime, the Eagles had 24 points. The Chiefs have 23 plays, or 23 total yards. That was ridiculous. Like never seen that before. Like this was total domination by this Eagles defense, and they can stake claim to being the best defense in Eagles history, which it's close because that 91 Gangrene defense, which was number one in every defensive statistical category. If only they had because I think that was the year Randall got hurt. And if they had somebody with a pulse at quarterback, they would have won a Super Bowl back then. And we wouldn't have waited until Super Bowl 52 to win our first one. But like they stake claim to being one of the best defenses in Eagles history, one of the best defense, a top 5 defense in NFL history. We're talking with the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, the Legion of Boom Seahawks. There's talk like the way that they played. Again, the 22 points, the 40-22 final score, the game wasn't that close. Like the Chiefs had 6 points with like 2.5 minutes to go in the game. That was Dak Prescott garbage time stuff by Patrick Mahomes, and I never thought I was going to see that in the Super Bowl.
No, I never thought that we would see it either. And you talked about it being like a business decision, this game, and how they were going to approach it. You even had people talking about they took it personally when they heard that they were asking to use a trademark three-peat. And some players took that personally, and they took that as their business decision because they said that was them basically overlooking us as an opponent and looking towards their 4th championship before they even got their 3rd. And it's crazy to think like they took all this stuff personally, but they played so disciplined. It was crazy to see how disciplined they were. Like even in the moments where people were getting like, there was a moment where Travis Kelce jumped up and like walked through CJ Gardner-Johnson. In a normal game, CJ Gardner-Johnson definitely probably would have yapped or gotten in his face and forced a penalty on somebody. but he didn't in
he
that
did
moment.
Go to IG afterwards, though.
He did. Yeah, he did after the fact. But I mean, that's okay. If you want to do that stuff after the fact, that's completely fine. Like whatever he said. I know what he said, and it's whatever. It could be dicey, but I mean, it is what it is. They were disciplined in this game. They traded bad penalty for bad penalty on the first 2 penalties of the game. Those both calls were really not. If you go by the rule book,
when they called that OPI on AJ Brown, I was like, here we go. I thought the fix was in.
And then the next one was the same referee.
One definitely wasn't. And then when Goddard hit up top, I mean, to the letter of the law it was, but I thought you can't call that in the Super Bowl either.
Well, exactly. And that was the issue that I had with it, was like, letter of the law, those are definitely penalties. Those are definitely flags. But in the Super Bowl, you let the kids play. And they basically, after those 3 calls, pretty much let them play. And I mean, was there probably some missed stuff? I haven't seen as much as the Commanders, but the Commanders whined a lot. And that's what led to them putting together film of every missed flag. But of course,
you hear DeAndre Hopkins after the game?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
He's crying.
Yeah, he was definitely crying. And I mean, at the end of the day, so are you going to go, are you discounting all these other teams that you beat by some dicey calls? Like, you can't discount it just because it might have went the other way for once. But I don't think it fully went that way. Like, there was nothing. The only thing egregious was they probably should have called a lot more penalties on the offensive line when they were guarding Jalen Carter. Because
that's been all year. That wasn't just yesterday. Brett Eclipse, what's up, man? Thank you for joining us. Sweat and Milton played their way out of Philly, sadly. First 3 rounds in draft could end up being all D-line. I always said that the first rounder was going to be an edge.
I do think that, I think edge for sure. I do think that the priorities are going to be Bond and Becton, because Becton is someone who at the end of the day, you're going to probably pay him as the highest paid right guard with the intent of kicking him to right tackle. So I feel like those are going to be the 2 that get prioritized, because Howie and his staff
I want to prioritize Milton Williams.
I would want to prioritize Milton Williams too. I'm okay with Josh Sweat going, as hard as that is to say, but I feel like this Eagles scouting team and Howie Roseman can find another Josh Sweat, or can find people who can put up similar numbers to Josh Sweat. That's why I'm not as worried about Sweat and Milton Williams, just because I feel like this scouting team and Howie Roseman fixate on the defensive and offensive line so much. They know what they're looking for. They know what they're going to get. And those are guys that they can replace more easily than I think Becton, with the eyes towards, Lane Johnson maybe being done. And then Bond, just because we talked about it, you don't have Nakobe Dean back until likely after the first 4 weeks of next season. So you definitely need to get that continuity. Otherwise, at a minimum, like you said, you could go and find another Zach Bond. Okay, sure. But you're going to risk that with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Oren Burks is gone. So Jeremiah Trotter, and I don't even know who the backup would be beyond that now, because Oren Burks is going to be gone.
They'll probably bring him back.
I know. And to be blunt on that, like, Oren Burks had a great run. I wanted to see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Oren Burks had a great playoff run. So Oren Burks may have earned his way back, but I'm not saying Oren Burks could become the next Zach Bond. I don't want to see that. I'm okay with both coming back. But
so San Diego 2019, thank you for joining us. I didn't get a notification for you guys in my own punishment for calling out Tech Quitting too much. No, I enjoy that, especially with his Tanner McKee comments every week. So excited for next year. I think they're way better set up for another legitimate run than they were in 2018 and 2023. We just won the Super Bowl. I don't want to think about next year yet, but
I agree
with the leadership of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, and depend on what happens at offensive coordinator. Unless if I'm Lurie and they really want Kellen Moore back, I would just pay him more.
I'd make him. You're paying you have like the highest paid defensive coordinator. You're gonna have the highest paid coach. You might as well have the highest paid offensive coordinator if it keeps the continuity.
Want to go to the Saints anyway. That's a terrible job.
Well, I've been saying that I think that he's gonna go there and he's gonna end up getting fired within 2 or 3 years. He's the dummy, not dumb, but dummy coach that's going to be there while they work their way through not having a quarterback, while they work their way through not having any salary cap. Because the next 2 years, they rank like 32nd in the league in salary cap, and they got to shed $50 million heading into 2025. So, like, it just feels like the guy that by the end of year 2, they're just going to move on from Kellen Moore. And no disrespect to Kellen Moore, it took him this long and through a number of cycles to get this opportunity. And he's only getting the opportunity because nobody wants the job.
Well, Mike McCarthy.
Everybody
McCarthy wanted the job. Anthony Weaver wanted the job, but they said that they're going to Moore. There were a couple people that wanted the job.
But some of them chose to just wait till next year because they feel there will be better opportunities for jobs next year or better.
I mean, the people they interviewed want the job. They like Anthony Weaver would take the job, but they told him that they're going with somebody else. McCarthy wants the job, but I don't know what the hell he's doing. But yeah, the Birds were focused and looked very hungry for the trophy. I was so proud to see them keep their foot on the gas, especially against Mahomes. The one thing I was telling people that I was watching the game with yesterday, think about like the core of the team. You got the Georgia Bulldogs defense. What are they used to doing? Winning SEC and national championships. You have some Alabama offensive players. What are they used to doing? Winning SEC championships and national championships. As Brett Eclipse says, we've come a long way from drafting Rager over Jefferson. Draft SEC players. You draft SEC players. What is the SEC motto? It just means more. Might be different now with the whole NIL, blah, blah, whatever. But if you draft players out of the tough conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, you're more than likely going to be a good team. And it's fine. Like the Eagles finally started doing that. Drafting players from Alabama, drafting players from Georgia, and look at the team now. Like, they get coached up like it's an NFL program, and these players come prepared to play, and they're just used to winning. Keely Ringo has won at every level. Jalen Carter at college and NFL level. Nolan Smith, college and NFL. Jordan Davis, college and NFL. Devontae Smith is one of 5 players to win a Heisman Trophy, national championship, and a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts has won a national championship, now a Super Bowl. Landon Dickerson, keep at it with keep drafting from the SEC and you're going to hit. Don't draft from freaking TCU. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, I agree, and especially now with the way NIL is and everything, like it's probably going to become even more important to be really good at scouting and to pick the most competitive guys and people from competitive teams, because you have people that are just going wherever to get paid. So it's going to be all that more important that if they get paid and they go to weaker divisions and they don't blow up, then, it just makes it so NIL just, to me, throws just such a different element into things. But we've definitely come a long way in the drafting process since the Jalen Reagor draft and some of the mistakes of, 4, 5, 6 years prior. It's Howie Roseman's definitely turned things around, but it definitely comes down to competition.
And what used to be a weakness is now a strength of his when it comes to the draft. I always used to say in the past, I wouldn't mind him handling the money, the business side of things. I wanted a football guy. Well, he's turned himself into a football guy. He deserves a lot of credit. Robert Yeager, thanks for joining us. Maybe now the national media will give the Eagles the credit they deserve. The team was awesome on both sides of the ball, and Mahomes and the Chiefs weren't good enough. The one thing is the Eagles always build from inside out. They were dominant at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, and it showed yesterday. Again, that Chiefs offensive line had zero chance against the Eagles defensive line, and the Eagles offensive line was really good in pass protection. Now, the Chiefs, it felt like the Chiefs were not going to let Saquon beat them. They were going to force Jalen to, and what did Jalen do? Jalen beat them. That's why he's the Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, the national media is going to give a bit of credit now. They're going to give credence now, but give it, by when things start getting boring, they're going to start hot taking things, and it'll turn into the same thing with Jalen Hurts. One of the things I didn't even look for it. It just popped up on my feed. Colin Cowherd reacting to the Super Bowl, and what was his first comment? He said, Jalen Hurts did a really good job winning in a Jalen Hurts way. His comment was already meant to mitigate it and discount it but my thing here is this: you play to your players' strengths, and these people the national media just looks at skill level. It's just like why the conversation's going to rage on the Jalen Hurts. Is he a top 5 quarterback or not? I want a winner. I don't care if would I like to have Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson? Sure. But if it's all about skill set and they're never winning the big game, they're never getting to the Super Bowl, that's the difference. I want a winner. I want to win. What happened? Like, we're back to that conversation of what happened to one in winners. Nick Sirianni, he's a winner. Jalen Hurts, he's a winner. They got back to the Super Bowl for the second time, and now they are Super Bowl champions. They are Super Bowl winners. Like, you want to be a winner at the end of the day. It just so happens that in the past, guys like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, they're winners that also had amazing skill sets. But there's a lot of players like they scout the name. They don't, or they make an opinion based on a name versus, the idea that it's about winning and playing to your players' strengths. The Philadelphia Eagles just debunked the myth that you can't win a championship by running the ball, because they pretty much, up until the Super Bowl, ran the ball the entirety of the season. Like 56, 57% of the time, all the way up to the Super Bowl. And defense wins championships. That was starting to be a mantra that was kind of fading away, and building through the trenches, something that people were discounting. And now suddenly everybody wants to pay premiums for edge, pay premiums for those guys like Jalen Carter who can wreak havoc in the middle of a defensive line. That's the thing. You'll get the national media that's still going to continue to drive certain narratives, because that's just what they do. And they scout the name and they scout the skill. They don't scout for wins or the things that really, truly, ultimately should matter, because wins equal championships.
Yeah, and again, Jalen has always said each game is going to look different. He doesn't care about stats. All he cares about is winning, and he went out there and proved it. And you look at it, the 2 Super Bowls against the Chiefs, he has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both games. He could have won the MVP 2 years ago in a loss. Mahomes got it. It is what it is. But he has outplayed Patrick. And this is the other thing. Remember, Cam Newton made that point of the only reason that the Eagles and Jalen Hurts made the Super Bowl because they're not in the AFC. Well, what did the Eagles and Jalen Hurts do that Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to do? Josh Allen hasn't been able to do. Joe Burrow did it once in the playoffs, but for the most part, they beat the Chiefs. The Eagles are set up perfectly to beat a team like the Chiefs, and that's what they did. So, like, you got to put respect on Jalen's name, got to put respect on the Eagles' name. So, like, I'm tired of hearing how just because they're in the NFC is the only reason they made the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear that mess. The Eagles are the best team in football or
they talk about, Jalen Hurts, if Josh Allen had the roster build that Jalen Hurts, nothing's stopping them from building a roster just like how Howie's doing it. Just, you got to make the right decisions. You got to be smart with the salary cap. You got to draft good. It's not anybody else's fault but the Buffalo Bills that their top receiver was Khalil Shakir and Mac Hollins. It is their 100%.
They could have drafted Xavier Worthy, but they traded the pick to the
and then drafted Keon Coleman, who has underperformed significantly too. So that's what it's all about. You can go on and on, but about all these different things. But the goal of a GM is to build a good roster. The job of the coordinators is to put their players in the best position to succeed. I don't need to see, Kellen Moore going out there and making Jalen Hurts throw the football 30 or 40 times a game just to expose potential weaknesses. No, if we're able to run the ball, if we can dominate, if we're physical up front and we can continue to dominate up front and through the run game, why wouldn't you play that way? It just doesn't make any sense to me, the logic that some people use.
San Diego says, on a small note, I'm excited about how good Jalen Hurts can be in the future on this defensive line. He was all over Mahomes last night. He played well. I was shocked. I mean, Jalen Hurts, talk about a hit, like a guy that was playing safety in college, then went to a small Texas school and then switched to defensive end, and he looked really good. I mean, he has a chance to be really, really good.
Just to point out one thing, Moro Ojomo had 3 pressures last night, and Jalen Hunt had 5, and both of them played 23 and 25 snaps. I know it doesn't mitigate. Obviously, we want Milton Williams and Josh Sweat back, but obviously it should show that, Howie's doing a good job. Moro Ojomo was an undrafted free agent, was he not?
No, he was 6th or 7th round.
6th or 7th. But see that, like, hitting on those picks and being able to have a guy like Moro Ojomo step up in a moment like that, and a guy like Jalen Hunt being able to have the best game of his young career so far. There's bright spots for Ojomo and Hunt for sure.
San Diego says it blew my mind to find out that and it's any Alabama player, and it's that graduated or from Alabama, because Jalen Hurts obviously went to Alabama, but they're going to say he's from Oklahoma. I was shocked to hear that Smitty was the first Alabama player to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Think about all the players that come out of Alabama. It's crazy that he is the first one. Obviously, Derrick Henry hasn't been to a Super Bowl. Najee Harris hasn't been to a Super Bowl. Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones was in the Super Bowl but didn't score. It's crazy to think about that he was the first one to score a touchdown. When I heard that stat, I was shocked.
Especially with the amount of Bama players that have gotten drafted into the NFL.
Yeah, especially when Saban started there. Brett Eclipse says the goalposts always move with Hurts. Everyone was talking about how if you stop Saquon and make Jalen win the game, the Chiefs will win. Then Jalen proves them wrong, and they will talk about his help. They also talk about it's the help and the system. Do we not realize that Jalen has had a different offensive coordinator at every level of football? Every year but one. The system, Jalen is the system. Let's just say how it is. Jalen Hurts is the system. Everybody says you just put anybody into the system and they can win. Remember 2 years ago, Gardner Minshew lost to the Cowboys and the Saints, and Jalen had to come back and play the Giants in a what should have been a meaningless Week 17 or Week 18 game, but they needed to win it to get the number 1 seed. I don't want to hear. Jalen Hurts is the system. Like, Kevin Patullo is probably going to be the new offensive coordinator if Kellen Moore leaves.
Should be.
Or maybe they'll bring Frank Wright, whatever it's going to be. Yeah. It's probably going to be Patullo, though. But, do what Jalen likes to do. Again, Jalen says each game is going to look different. If we have to run the ball for 500 yards, we'll run the ball for 500 yards. If we have to throw the ball for 300 yards, we'll throw the ball for 300 yards. It doesn't matter what it looks like.
No, I agree on that point.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter because Jalen Hurts is one of the winningest QBs in the league, and he has something that whoever their guy doesn't, a ring. It's very true. And Jalen doesn't care, and neither should we anymore. I do want to say something about that. I don't know if it was Brett Eclipse or if it was somebody else, but wasn't somebody back around that before the Steelers game saying he wants to see Hurts go 20 of 25 for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns? And I said, he can do it when he needs to do it.
I feel like that was Tech that said that, because he came on a few times and made the comment that he wants to see Jalen Hurts throw the ball.
I thought it was Tech and somebody else. I don't remember if it was Brett Eclipse or not, because I remember that comment, and I was like, it doesn't matter how it happens. When Jalen needs to throw the football, he will throw the football. And again, against Steelers, he did. And against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, he did. Against Washington, he when he needed to, he did. So again, Jalen doesn't give a crap about numbers. The only thing he cares about is the W or the L. That's it. And that's all that we should care about. Super Bowl champs. It doesn't matter how it gets done. As long as you win that. As long as you win the title. As long as you have the Lombardi trophy.
It's so true, though. There's just so much that people look at in the NFL now, and I don't know if that's because people are like armchair scouts, paying homage to another Eagles Pimple show. But I don't know if it's that so many people are literally armchair scouts and they want to see more, or they want to see a guy do something that maybe they're not good at, or wants to see somebody in a system that they're not built for to see if they can break out of the specific system. Like, they just want to see so many different things to kind of like to improve on weaknesses and stuff, if that makes sense. It just feels like people just sit back and they want too much from players or want too much different from players. They get tired of seeing the same thing, like maybe seeing the same thing from Jalen Hurts, and how Jalen Hurts is how the offensive coordinators have to build the system around Jalen Hurts and his skill set. But to me, sometimes like you don't have to, like sometimes you just need to enjoy the W and go get the W and worry about the wins, because how you get the wins is what matters. Not, well, what if Jalen could be an all-around quarterback and throw the football more accurately and better more often? Who cares? Like you said, that doesn't matter. That shouldn't matter. That's the reality of this whole situation. It's all about winning, and I feel like we've gotten just too far away from the fact that W's are what matter because of being armchair scouts and the national media and just trying to have a hot take.
Brady Clips also says A.J. Brown's highest receiving total with the Titans was 1,075. He had higher numbers every season with the Birds. He's been a Pro Bowler every year, All-Pro every year. He played 13 games. He had the quietest 1,000-yard season this year. Now, I know 1,000 yards for a receiver isn't really much anymore with a 17-game schedule, but he played, 13 games?
As I say, yeah, he missed 4 games.
And a team that was primarily a rushing team. Again, he's used to that because that's how he was with the Titans. And he averaged 17, 18 yards of reception. He was still really, really good. And all this talk about how just because he gets he's close with Vrabel and the Patriots need a receiver, that Vrabel's the Eagles are not trading AJ Brown.
They just extended him. The money financially. First of all, financially figuring that out, it's just not going to make sense. You're going to take on a dead cap hit for what? To get rid of one of your best players?
The team that just won the Super Bowl.
No, and I mean, it takes me back to that scene where Nick Sirianni, he makes a comment to Nick Sirianni coming off the field during the game, early in the game. And then that next possession was the one that he went out there and they found him and he got the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a passionate player. Let's face it. The reality is what the reality is with AJ Brown. He's a passion, and some people call it being a diva. Some people call it passionate. I don't think he's a diva. I just think he's super passionate, and he has those outbursts. And we've seen it with this Philadelphia Eagles team all year. They will have those outbursts with cameras watching. And so many people are like, well, is that good for the team? That's not really good for the team because people are seeing that you guys are fighting. That's good. That's called passion. That's getting it out there or getting what you need to get out there. And then it's just having a coach go up and say, we'll look at the film and we'll address it after the game. That you deal with it after, but get what you need to get out then, because it's better than going into the presser and just unloading on the media and creating, the shitstorm that was the passing comment of AJ Brown earlier in the season.
Well, it's also why he reads inner excellence too. So. Yeah.
Yep.
He also Brady Clips. Jalen made the playoffs in his first year starting without AJ and an average defense. He's made he's made the playoffs every year as a starter and with Nick Sirianni. And again, winners. That's what AJ Brown, that's what Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni are. And I will say this. I've been thinking about who's going to give the Jason Kelce speech at the parade. If there's one person that deserves to unload a clip on anybody and everybody, it's Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts for that matter, but definitely Nick Sirianni. He won't do it, but I would love to see Nick Sirianni go scorched earth at the parade. I would love to see it.
It's definitely going to be a player. They just go that way. But, I mean, he definitely deserves it. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the video of him on stage dancing and singing a song that's basically paying homage to all the disrespect that's been towards him. Like, that he has so much more to say. He was so humble after the game because he's with his kids and he's just taking in the moment and he's crying and he's just loving everything. But if you gave him full range to just drop a freestyle speech, I bet you he would give an amazing speech at the parade and he would make a lot of people pay for a lot of comments. I mean, we've been critical of him. I've never been as out on Nick Sirianni in our discussions as at points maybe you have been or others have been in the comments for sure. Because he's still winning. We're still winning. We hit a snag at the end of last year. The start of this year didn't start that great, but that's why you don't decide your entire season in the first 4 weeks of a season or based on the year prior with a brand new coordinating staff. That's why you don't make those rash decisions right away. Because if you had have pulled people at the time, I promise you in the week 5 bye, at least 50% of fans would have been ready to fire Nick Sirianni if they were Howard Rose.
You can say that now, though, but let's be honest. The Eagles start 2-5 next year. People are going to want to fire.
Oh, of course. It's going to start this. But you know that's going to happen every year. But I'll be the one that says, remember last year. Just remember these other moments.
I mean, because we did it with Doug Peterson, just saying.
San Diego 2019, I would love for Nick to do this speech as well. And then she says Lane Johnson could do the Kelsey-style speech. He's been through it all.
He could. He is him or Brandon Graham. One of them could do it. They've been here. Brandon Graham's been here the longest.
Feel like it's got to be one of those veteran guys because they just would have so much to say and so much passion to put into it. So
we have 4 players on the team that have 2 championships. Rick Lovato, Jake Elliott, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson. It's the first time a Philadelphia athlete has had 2 championships since the Flyers back in the 70s. It's been 50 years since anybody's had 2, and the Eagles have 4 of them, winning 2 titles in the last 8 years.
But look at the rest of the Philly teams. I won't get off topic, but it's just it's a mess in Philly. The Eagles are we're going to live and die by the Eagles for many years, I think.
Well, the Eagles are always going to be the number 1 team.
100%.
So the one thing I wanted to say. The beginning of the game when Bradley Cooper did the introduction, by the way, he was better than John Hamm. I knew instantly that there was 0 chance that the Chiefs were going to have any type of an advantage with the crowd. They
erupted. That was
when
it felt like a home game.
Did with him and his son when they did the EAGLES. It was loud. It sounded like the Link, and there was 65% Eagles fans in there.
And that, by the way, that wasn't his son. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and I heard his interview. It was some kid who was really sick and had been through some stuff, and they gave him tickets to the game, and Bradley Cooper said, I want to bring him down to do this, I guess.
Awesome.
So the story goes.
As soon as he started with the EA, it felt like everybody in that. So it's crazy, though, because that's a dome stadium, obviously, and it was loud with only, 65% Eagles fans. Can you imagine? And again, I'm still against the Dome as the Eagles' primary stadium. But can you imagine 70,000 Eagles fans in a Dome stadium in Philadelphia doing EAGLES? Good Lord, it might actually break a roof or something. It
was wild. It felt so much. And on the Cooper DeJean interception and stuff, you just knew there was 0. And I know that there's probably like you said, it was probably 60% Eagles fans, but then there was probably that 20% more that just didn't want to see the three-peat, didn't want to see Patrick Mahomes win another championship, or Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift have their moment to engage on the field after the victory. Or if that was actually going to happen, who knows? But I mean, I've kind of convinced myself that it was probably going to happen. So
I actually think that Travis Kelce might retire.
He has not seemed himself this season as a whole. He's really seemed dejected. During his presser, he answered a handful of questions and said, yeah, all right, see you later, guys. And he just doesn't seem, and it seems like he's been hinting at it a bit, but that's for the Chiefs to figure out. We know Lane is coming back. We know Slay might come back. So
we haven't heard from Jason Kelce. I want to know what he thought about the game, his thoughts. Jason hasn't tweeted, haven't seen anything about how he feels in the game. Obviously, he probably feels bad for his brother. But being that he just retired from the Eagles, does he feel, obviously, he feels awesome, proud for his offensive line mates, his teammates. But I want to know, how does he feel?
Yeah, no, I'm wondering if maybe on the New Heights podcast or show this week that's when he'll finally get into it. Maybe it was kind of out of respect for my brother in this moment, I'm not going to say a whole lot. But I mean, at the same to the same prerogative, like you said, he was a lifetime Eagle guy. Like he should be in it, and I'm sure in the moment wherever he watched the game, he was probably loving life. But
well, he was up in Taylor's suite, so
yeah. I mean, maybe that's why he's been a bit more silent and respectful. But Texas, Kelsey wanted to win, propose, and retire. I think so. But I still do believe there's a chance that Kelsey retires because he hasn't looked himself or sounded himself.
I could tell you one thing: the Chiefs did not expect that ass whooping that they got.
They were stunned when they showed that sideline though for the first quarter. Like even that whole first quarter, that everyone just looked absolutely stunned. Spags couldn't believe because. What worked last time? Nothing was working. He could not. He dialed up the only thing that worked was, like you said, the Bolton pressure that created the interception. That's about the one play where they actually got home to Jalen Hurts. And
they were good against the run.
And they were amazing against the run, but I think that was their game plan, was take away the run, and what are the Eagles going to do? And I don't think people expected the defense to be able to shut down Mahomes to that level, or that the offense would end up being able to capitalize over and over and over and put in points up. Wasn't always touchdowns, but even Jake Elliott. Props to Jake Elliott, who every time he kicked a field goal, I was holding my heart close. So
Bo Allen, former Eagle, said on hold on, I got the tweet. Said, I gotta find it. I'm sorry. That Bo Allen on the Green Light podcast said that Jake Elliott played through injury this year.
Interesting.
Could potentially
explain things.
Why he wasn't good from now. He hit the 50-yarder. He was perfect from field goals in the Super Bowl, but he, we'll see. They're obviously not going to get rid of him, but I'm pretty sure that he'll be on a shortish leash next year if he can't hit these long field goals, because missing all those field goals definitely was worrisome throughout the year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. San Diego 2019, I want Travis to propose to Taylor. He could have still done it after the loss. Those tears could have served a dual purpose. And then Crabby Old Man says TQ and Tech and Crabby Old Man are having a love fest in our comments. So what else do you want to say about the game? I mean,
Tech, how did you feel about Jalen winning Super Bowl MVP? Just saying. No, but I mean, I'm just thrilled. I'm looking forward. I'm excited that we get a parade. We got our, again, as I mentioned, it took 30 years of my life before the Eagles actually won a Super Bowl. We've got 2 in the last 8 years. They're a preeminent franchise. People back in the early 2000s used to talk about, when Jeffrey Lurie said the Eagles were the gold standard and they hadn't won a Super Bowl. He can actually say that now. The Eagles are up there with the Patriots and the Chiefs. In this the last quarter century, to where they're a preeminent franchise in the NFL, and you can't say otherwise when it comes to the Eagles. They're young enough that they could be back there, and we could potentially see a grudge match. We could see the round 3 between the Eagles and the Chiefs over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was being talked about and thrown around, is this isn't going to be the last time we see the Eagles here. Yes, they have some tough decisions to make, but it's not something that you wouldn't entrust Howie Roseman with making the right decisions, or making decisions that are still going to keep this team competitive. Because, I think over the last 20 years, the top 3 teams from a wins perspective are the Pats, Chiefs, and Eagles. And the Eagles have had, I think, a couple seasons where we were right around hovering 9-8. We had a 4-11-1 season, but Howie always finds a way to rebound in more recent memory, Howie continues to find a way to rebound and fill holes. Next man up mentality. Like we already said, Moro Jomo seems ready to take on more and take that next step if Milton Williams is gone. Jalix Hunt looks like he's getting ready to take that next step. I think Jalix Hunt is more of a Nolan Smith. I think it might take more into his like year 3 type situation because Jalix Hunt, I think, still has more refine into his game. But I mean, this was a good start. I mean, against an offensive line you should have taken advantage of, Jalix Hunt took complete advantage with 5 pressures on 23 snaps. So there's reason to have a lot of confidence in the future and to expect that the Eagles are not going to just collapse and that they will likely be back. They'll definitely be back in the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them back in the Super Bowl again at least 1 or 2 times in the next 5 years.
Oh, yeah. And as we mentioned earlier, a lot of people are about to get paid. It's going to be very, very interesting how he just does this offseason. And I think it was like usually how he re-signs people like in the regular season, like halfway through or whatever. I think it was a calculated thing for Howie not to, and maybe not to just mess with the locker room because you pay somebody. Other people are going to be like, well, you paid him. Why aren't you paying me? So nobody got paid. Now he's going to have decisions to make over the next couple of weeks. I mean, the combine's in like 2 weeks. It's crazy how quickly things are going to come up for the Eagles and the decisions that need to be made by the front office.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting offseason, and we are definitely going to be doing an episode coming up for free agents, stay or go. For the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm piecing together the offseason schedule, but that's definitely going to be one of the things is free agents, stay or go, who we think needs to be prioritized. I know that there's 4 that I would love to see all of them back, but obviously I think it's going to be split. 2 are going, 2 are staying. Hopefully 2 are staying. But we'll get into that in future episodes. But for now, like living the moment, taking the moment, enjoy the parade on Friday if you live in Philly and get the opportunity to go or watch it if that's what you're stuck doing. But I mean, that was just pure domination. That's a Super Bowl.
Valentine's Day parade.
I know a lot of Valentine's Day plans got ruined by that.
Well, a lot of babies might be created on Valentine's Day night.
Usually it is. I think it's whatever 9 months from February 14th is one of the highest birth rate days around the world. Yeah, sometime in November. Like it's usually a very heavy month for births. So, but yeah, 40-22 was not that close. Really, it was more like 40-6 if we take out the garbage time stuff. I mean, it was. I couldn't believe it. I'm still in awe of just how dominant that entire game was by the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's a Super Bowl that in most cases I would be like, man, this sucks. Like we're witnessing a super boring Super Bowl. But I loved every last second of watching that happen. And
I mean, obviously, if roles were reversed, we wouldn't.
Oh, we would. We wouldn't be loving it. But we knew you could just tell the Eagles came in the more motivated team, the more prepared team, the team that wasn't looking ahead to the offseason or, what about Super Bowl number 2 if we win Super Bowl number 1? You could tell they were focused on this game. They were focused on each down, each quarter, each drive as they came, and they weren't looking anywhere beyond any of that. And even at the end of it, they really didn't get into any type of celebration mode until probably start of the fourth, leading deeper into the fourth quarter. You could tell that they were not ready to crown themselves.
I never anticipated starters being taken out.
The comment was up there. I'd have to go digging for it, but somebody said, and I remember messaging you the same thing. I never thought I would see Kenny Pickett out there in the Super Bowl, even just taking the kneels. I could not even believe that we were seeing Kenny Pickett out there for offensive plays in the Super Bowl. It was amazing.
Yeah, Brett Eclipse said if someone told me Kenny Pickett would be taking Super Bowl snaps, I'd have been mortified. Hey, Kenny Pickett has more Super Bowl snaps than Dak Prescott has NFC Championship snaps. Just saying.
Ooh,
yeah.
Boy.
Well, the Eagles are the Super Bowl 59 champs, the second Super Bowl in franchise history. Yes, you heard that right. The Eagles are a preeminent franchise in the NFL, and this team has a lot of talent. I thought McKee might get in there at the end. That means Hurts and Pickett would have needed to get hurt. Guys, please jot down Dotson versus Nia Smith for 2025 to discuss. They're both going to be on the roster.
Oh, they're both going to be on the roster, but like I guess the question would probably end up
along
being
with
like
Johnny Wilson.
Who do you prefer or whatever? But we'll definitely have
Dotson,
episodes where
I will say this though, Dotson really at the end started getting confidence, and Jalen started having confidence throwing him the ball. And I think that
I think that was huge.
Once Jalen gets confidence in you, like you said, it's huge, and he'll start throwing the ball. And again, just imagine the odds on him being the first person to score a touchdown. I mean, he was down at the one, so it was a tush push, but
just when you think about it, he people often forget about with Dotson, you have a very tough role when you're playing behind AJ Brown, behind Devontae Smith. You were then playing fifth fiddle to Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts legs. You were literally the sixth option in the entire offense. And when you get thrown to, you have to make plays. And you could tell from at the beginning, Jalen wasn't comfortable going there. And Dotson did make a couple mistakes that led Jalen even further away from him. But like you said, as the season progressed, you could tell that he started to get more confidence in him. And maybe they were getting more reps and they were seeing more eye to eye. I do think that obviously Dotson's going to be the third wide receiver again next year, I think, especially after his Super Bowl performance. That's to visit down the road. But I mean, again, you're still going to be the sixth fiddle, no matter what. Goddard's back, Barkley's back, Hurts and his legs are back, Brown and Smith are going to be back, no matter what people say about AJ Brown and the trade rumors. They're all going to be back, and it's going to be you're playing sixth fiddle again. So it's less of an important discussion to have compared to other needs we will have.
Yeah, and we'll see who the offensive coordinator is going to be, unless Kellen Moore decides to stay, which I don't think he will. But
I'm sure we'll have an episode on that too. But I mean, I think respectfully, I think it's going to be Kevin Tula. I mean, he's been around. He's seen the offenses. He's seen things work. He's seen things not work. Eventually, he's going to be pulled from your staff to be offered an offensive coordinator role potentially. Kellen Moore might even look his way. So you don't want
Kellen Moore. No, Doug Nussmeier is going to be his offensive coordinator.
Oh yes. I forgot about that name. But you just have to remember, you don't want to lose those guys. We've lost some of those guys in the past to circumstances like that. So I mean, if the right guy's in house, and I think he's the right guy, but that's a discussion for another day.
Quickly, Eagles open up the season that Thursday night at home, raising second banner. Who's the opponent? I have two in mind.
You know, I was the one who who retweeted the Adam Schefter tweet, and I was the one who said Commanders. I think it's going to be the Commanders.
I say Rams or Broncos. Lions are also interesting, but I think they might hold that for a later season matchup. But I think it's going to be Rams or Broncos.
I just feel like the conference, I get it. It's a divisional matchup early in the season. You don't normally see it, so it would be tough to do. But I think it's going to be the Commanders.
I think they want to do it because
when the conference.
2 years ago, it was Chiefs Lions. Last year it was Chiefs Ravens. I think they're going to keep it out of division, and I think it could be Eagles Rams divisional matchup, or Eagles Broncos, a young and up and coming team. So that's why I went with those two. And it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be Cowboys, Washington, or Giants.
Tech agrees with me, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but he says Commanders. So.
Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in for all season long for our preview and review episodes. And we appreciate the Eagles Pinpool Network for bringing us over too. We've enjoyed our time here, and we are going to continue to enjoy our time here as we go forward in the off season and into the 2025 season as the Eagles look to defend their Super Bowl championship.
For any of our regular watchers, our days will probably stay Monday or Friday. We're not going to do 2 episodes, obviously, off season. They will probably stay Monday or Friday. And I promise follow us on Kelly Green Hour Twitter page, X page, and I will put forward a day or two early when we're going to go on live so that you can come, you can join us. For some people like San Diego 2019, they got the notifications through YouTube when the whole channel goes live. So you can always go and do those as well. But I make this commitment to you. Follow us on Twitter, and I will make sure to let you know a couple days in advance of our episodes.
Thank you, Tech. Great show. He says, great show. Thanks. Go Birds. Go Birds, as always. Combine's in a couple weeks. We do like to do draft. We do like to do our mock draft episode, free agency episode. Like Connor said, we'll probably do a stay and go for the Eagles free agents an episode. But and as Connor said, he'll let you guys know on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour when we will be going live. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl 59 champions. You heard that correctly. As Connor said earlier, if you're in Philly, if you're in the area and you're going to the parade on Friday, have fun. Be safe, but have fun. I can't wait to see who gives this big speech. That's I don't know if anybody's going to be able to top Jason Kelce, but I hope somebody tries. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRL54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate and review the show. We will be back. Give us a couple of weeks probably. As you can tell, I haven't had that, knock on wood, that cough lately because I had that nice little break in between the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. So I'm happy about that. It went away. Thank God. Let's knock on wood that it doesn't come back. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour here in the 2024 season where your Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.